reality guy. He does a really good job of that. At least for my sense of it, because like I'm only really about here in the middle of chapter 2. I'm really curious to get to Popper and Kuhn for him. Wow, this is really fun. This looks so fun. I think I've said this before. Hey, Bradley.
Hey, how are you?
I'm glad you just arrived to hear the worst possible confession to anybody who's tries to be academic or scholarly. I was about to say, I really dislike reading books. I really don't like reading, especially books. I just papers are a little bit easier for me because they're shorter.
Right.
And like holding a book in my hand and reading is like the least effective way for me to learn anything, and it's just how I am. That being said, this book, the Theory and Reality book, is the most captivating book I've held in my hand and turned around. Obviously, I have digital here, but it's been great to have a book in my hand and read it and feel like what normal people feel when they like to read books. Because I do not feel that. I do not feel the joy. Like people romanticize, oh, I just want to snuggle up with a good book and some tea. And it's like, yeah, I want to be. I'm not that person. But this book is the closest to that I felt, and I really appreciate it. So, we only got to this because Amanda mentioned something about we were kind of, we were talking. We didn't get very far in anything. Most of the first part of the meeting was actually talking about Muse, because I have some, and I'm going to try to do things with them and hopefully get them out to you guys, and all this other stuff. And I'll get back to that in a second. And then we talked a little bit about the paper, and Amanda was just saying, oh, one thing I would criticize is some of their language, like write it in your own words. And I jumped into this book about theory and reality with Peter Godfrey Smith, I think is his name. Mm-hmm. And I really like him because he will quote people, and then he will try to say, I think a better way to say this is blank. He will step forward into using his own words, and I find it to be a helpful juxtaposition. Because it's really nice when you can have the quotes from other people or the arguments of other people, and then the author's own sort of commentary on it, words, or like just stating their position relative to the other people. And I think I really admire, I like how that's being done in this book so far. It's been helpful for me to understand all this stuff. Right here, hold on. Okay. Okay, let us dive into another episode of Cognition Futures Reading Group. I think we're almost up to 60. It's 59. Wow, that's just quite nice. And appreciative of that. Yeah, so I guess any specific things we want to say for me, post I should just write this down. That's how I say his name. I just write PG-S. That's basically my update. We wrote about it. It was really kind of it's disappointing. It was just disappointing. They didn't do anything wrong necessarily. I really wish I could have done the workshop. It looked quite fun. And I missed the first day as well for a bunch of reasons that I'm not happy about. Um, the posters didn't happen. Um, Plot Twisters is like only this week deciding to come out of kind of summertime hiatus, and it was kind of it's kind of it was a little bit I don't know the word to say. I'll just speak of my own internal affectivity. A little bit, I because we had a meeting Sunday, and it was a nice catch-up meeting, and it was the first time we were like, okay, let's actually talk about some developing certain things forward. And I was like, man, I wish we could have had this discussion like 1 or 2 weeks ago, because then I might have actually, finished the poster. Even if I just showed up on the second day and presented that poster there, it would have been something. But that didn't happen, and it was kind of going to be me doing everything in a short amount of time, and that didn't work. And then the frontier map stuff is sort of nothing to show for that right now, which is also a little disappointing, but it's okay. So it was kind of just this big, it's kind of like showing up at the end of a party kind of a thing. I don't really go to many parties, I don't really know, but like it's going to some events, and you're there and you kind of see people, and you see what you want to do. I am very much looking forward to talking to Maria. I mentioned Sunday. Maria was someone who did the legal technical imaginaries paper. I have reached out to her on LinkedIn. I did talk to her. We kind of connected, and she's actually really happy to talk more about it, which is great. So maybe if things go that way, it could be kind of a society ethics tech thing to do in the future. I'll write that here. I mean, that was a positive thing. Like there was some valid networking that happened and something in the future. It wasn't as like really crisp. Last we wrote about was so great, and it was kind of tough because I traveled across the country with that, and I wasn't expecting much of a great experience. This was like right in my backyard, and I didn't get to go to it, and I was like, so it kind of it's it's a sense of, wow, this could have been really cool. But also at the same time, the flip side of that for me is between this paper, the phenomenology stuff, and what I'm doing here, I know this is sort of not, I keep talking about this like philosophy, history of science, project stuff, and it's kind of, I don't really have a lot to say about it yet to the group, but there's some stuff I'm getting here, and I think I will come back to it later. A sneak preview might be I really like this perspective is quite appealing to me. And this is fascinating, but well, the way the author is setting this up, these classical forms of empiricism were based on theories about the mind and how it works. And I think there's something to really be explored here, not just about empiricism, but sort of philosophy and history of science in the context of this, relative to what happened in, we could even say the second industrial revolution if we talked about the Norbert Wiener book, but the edge of enlightenment and this stuff here. Like there's some things that I guess the update is just for my own self here. My sort of There we go. My I don't know, update about this stuff is essentially I'm sorting out some of my own stuff about this. Basically, I think I said last time, the pre the the pre-science era, like what happened before people started using the word science, how that came about philosophically regarding empiricism and other ways of thinking and getting experimental data and testing data, and that sort of transition, and then going a bit further into these other things like empiricism and like logical positivism and these other things that are discussed here. Like there's I'm getting a little bit more sense of some of the strands um, of what I don't know. Like I'm getting some really important stuff in order from a sort of deeper perspective. So that's not really clear what I'm saying, but that's sort of what there's work being done here that's related to frontier math, that's related to this project, and related to some other things that I want to do. So that's sort of my brief update. I'll probably come back to this other book later, but it's not a focus for today. I don't know if anybody else wants to share any other updates. Yeah.
I encountered an article a few days ago, and I did not read it all, but it made me think of the philosophy of science interests that we've been touching on. I'll share it. It's maybe related to, it's definitely very generally related to like this empiricism and like pre-scientific method science. Yeah, so I guess the general idea is like we used to gain knowledge with like direct contact with the world, like the patterns that we would recognize and use to draw conclusions, like for example sweet urine meaning too much blood sugar or something. Now we have layers and layers and layers of instruments. Yeah, and I saw that metaphor was one thing that this touched on. So yeah, I skimmed it when I first found it, and then your update with this book made me think of it. So I want to go back to it, but yeah, so like starting with this very, I don't know, first personal direct knowledge of the body, and then we have these technological advancements which allow some things, but this article seems to argue that it like has put doctors at a distance from their patients.
Yeah. No context, and then knowing no context is one thing, and knowing the headline of this thing. I just saw this caption: British surgeon John Hunter tasted more than others. Okay. All right. I hear you. So between what you just said, Amanda, and also this, I'll explain a little bit this obscure quote that I put here. This was interesting too. Also, this is kind of funny. This is almost a meta brain reference to me, because this is like Aristotelian thing of like, oh, you have your plant brain, your animal brain, your human brain, or your souls, excuse me. And I was like, that kind of reminds me of some meta brain stuff. You have this, these different layers and what they're doing, But I came here to totally distract ourselves. I came here. What was this one too? I posted these pictures from this one's from the book. This one's about. phenomenalism, which is not quite the same as phenomenology, sensationalism, these things like that, and empiricists. Also interesting between rationalists and rationalism, which are rationalism in a modern sense. I think he equates a little bit more towards actual older takes on empiricism, whereas rationalists like Descartes and Leibniz, the capitalist folks, and Descartes, knowledge that didn't depend on experience. And I think why I'm kind of putting this here with this quote, which is from the Bible, and I saw in a very strange place. Not conform to this world, but transform your mind so that you'll prove the will of God, which is good, acceptable, and perfect. I think there's something I'm seeing with this sort of transition from the idea of perfection in a historical sense, and how that changed during this sort of scientific revolution and then the Enlightenment era, and what that meant for like doing science and doing philosophy. They met at coffee houses specifically. Interesting. I think there's something there that I'm sorting out, and I'm kind of intrigued to follow up on that. So more there as things continue to develop. But yeah, let's see. Where were we? Okay. No, yeah. I'm curious as we go through this. If you have thoughts on it later, let us know. Okay. Anything else? I think next one's basically in the pre-meeting section. Well, before Bradley showed up, I guess. We were playing around with Muse. Well, I was playing around with Muse, and I kind of asked a bunch of indirect questions about Muse, and I found something. And where's that one? Was like Muse EEG or something.
EEG.edu. Sorry, EEGEDU.com.
This looks to be this tutorial will help you learn about neurons and produce electrical activity, which we can measure by sticking electrodes on the head. We can pick up these changes in electricity. We'll walk you through the basics of EEG generation, data collection, analysis. All demos are done in the browser. Tutorials are designed to be used with Muse, laser headbands. And I couldn't get it to connect for whatever reason. I just opened up an older Muse. I think it works fine, but I've just been sitting in a box for a long time. So this looks potentially interesting. I don't know what it will be. I'll put it in here just if you want to look at it. But much more so, we kind of investigated, how can we get, how do we get the actual EEG data? I looked at Muse and Mendy, and like all the things you get are just these sort of like guided things. And then Muse itself has this, of course, proprietary blend special. How do they word it here? I don't know. They say something like, "Oh, we do a special interpretation or whatever." But basically, this, how do we get the export data, or the raw data? And I knew there was something about how to do it, but I eventually found, okay, there's an SDK kit, a software development kit, and I was going to fill that out to try to get that. There we go. I think the best thing for me to do would actually be to use my status as a grad student, because I think that's the most amenable way for them to do it. So, as my There's the email. But I don't know if we want to. Development work. Okay. We don't have to do this right now, but I'm curious if people want to throw some suggestions for how to. What would you say for your research initiative or previous app development work? I think that might just be, I don't know, other lab stuff. I'll just post a link to my website or something. I don't know. Yeah. Let's see. I might post that in Slack and discuss it later.
Okay.
What's that? Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. You can post it in Slack.
But it looks, hopefully this will work. And then we can actually get some EEG data. But that's sort of the, I don't know, stuff there. As far as like the project and new developments, nothing really, I guess a lot's been on my mind, but I don't, it's over here. I don't have anything really exciting to say. Just I'm looking forward to kind of pushing some stuff forward. We don't I guess we can just jump right into talking about this. Not this one, the actual paper. Amanda and I talked only a little bit about it before you were here, and it basically was, you know, some of the pros and cons of the paper. We basically said it's a nice overview, and maybe some translational issues. It was kind of disappointing a little bit because I really liked abstract and kind of they're setting things up, but they kind of it's basically I don't know if it's more of a survey or a review paper, but it's basically just saying it's not really pushing any ideas forward for them, the authors. It does a nice job of trying to explain some stuff, but it's kind of a nice overview. So I will take a few notes in these parts. But, yeah, I don't know if anything you want to say at the start of this, Amanda.
I said this before, but I was just like hoping that there would be more like severe challenges described, like some real hurdles, and then how neurophenomenology could possibly get over it. But it stayed very surface level. One thing so I started reading it pretty quickly. I kind of got the gist, so maybe I missed it. But one thing that came up when we were talking about on becoming aware, what difficulty that those authors mentioned for like a first person neuroscience, the difficulty was like when you like how do you know there isn't a kind of theory in this for an observation? Like if you are trying to observe your experience with as few predetermined concepts as possible, but then if your goal is to like develop some concepts around which to like as like a framework so that you can really study your experience, like you have to start somewhere. Then those concepts that you start with, there seems to be a risk of you interpreting your experience and aspects of it through those concepts. That's what I mean by like theory ladenness. You can't help but your first personal data like has to be in terms of these concepts that you start with, and that seems like a real challenge for neurophenomenology. I know Varela et al. Described this much better. I guess I could probably find it really quickly, but that's the basic idea. Is like if you're trying to describe a framework, if your first personal data will have to be interpreted through some kind of framework. And so there's a risk of like your like preconceptions altering your experience, I guess.
Mm. Yeah.
I guess my point is that seems like a real problem for neurophenomenology or any first-person methodology, and this paper didn't really get into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think about. I'm really curious to. Some of the citations explicitly mention some parts of like the embodied mind, and I would like to go back and look at them. I really wonder what I think of the embodied. I'm not saying we should look at that next. Maybe these citations or something, but I'll look at that again, I should say. But I'm really curious what I would make of what's in the embodied mind. I'm really curious what I would make of some of Varela's other writings now that I know what I know about some things, because yeah, because of all that stuff. I do think that's a major problem. I don't know if that's coming up in your neurophenomenology paper, but I think that's definitely a kind of it's kind of a big part of the Message Project General, whether it's this in phenomenology specific, yes, but also these sort of I don't know, the how do I say it? Let me just put something from becoming aware. Excavation fallacy. Ooh, Hycrodarian move. Interesting.
Yeah, so that's just a snippet, and there's more context surrounding it. But yeah, the general idea is there, I think.
Interesting. So Varela's citing both. Is this from Varela? Yeah. Okay. I'm becoming aware. Citing both Heidegger and Derrida. All these objections go to the heart of our project here. Emphasize the claim that there is no such thing as deep, pre-linguistic layer of experience, since any account is always already unfolded in language. Hence, any new account will only be an inflection of linguistic practice to go all the way down. Oof. Oh, wow. That's a lot of stuff. So do you see this like in contrast to some of Fuchs is getting at about basal affectivity, or is it not really touch upon that? I can't quite make it out yet.
I don't see a clear, a simple connection between the two.
Okay.
Because here, like, go all the way down means that we can't escape language in our thought. Like, the language of thought, there's a literal language of thought. There's something inherently linguistic about all thought. That would be the issue here. So like that would also apply to trying to describe features of basic affectivity.
Mm. Yeah. Trying to avoid two unilateral extremes, claiming experience is standard raw, pure, or ineffable, or claiming that all our experiences are already molded or even deformed by the language we use. All we have is experience at its own level of examination, depending on the kinds of effort and methods brought into play in that examination. Hmm. Yeah, I feel that. I
So this is what I mean by there's like a lot of there are certainly papers to write that like dig into this challenge, clarify what the authors like that are defending first personal methodology, like clarify what they mean, examine more closely the objection. I feel like in the quote that I'm looking for. Because I feel like there is another part where they make it more clear. But anyways, and that's the kind of task that I was hoping this paper would do. Like, this is a possible objection that we talked about when we were reading on Becoming Aware. And I know we have old notes pages about it. And we could write this paper. That's what I was hoping for out of this, is like people who are sympathetic to neurophenomenology, but see possible threats and wanted to overcome that, and they defend it. And like maybe they offer a better response than the authors themselves, because at least in the quotes I'm finding, they kind of are a little bit dismissive, and they kind of say, in the bits that I skipped, they kind of say like, oh, that's a problem for third personal science too. So there are opportunities for that kind of project for sure.
Yeah, I'm not wording this very well, but yeah. Yeah, and I think so. I think they kind of go up. It feels like a sort of the paper is sort of a primer on some surface stuff, and it doesn't. I don't think it does a great job of getting into like I don't even think at the ends it doesn't really have like a future, um, like the discussion session. Even the way they talked about first person science or first person neuroscience, I wasn't quite sure what to make of that.
Right, that could mean so many different things. And they list a few of those things, but that could be a paper on its own. Is like, how could first personal experience possibly be brought into neuroscience? Like, how has it been? And they cite some examples of where first personal stuff has been brought into like scientific studies. But yeah, there's a lot of potential there too.
Yeah.
I felt like a lot of it was just commentary on like, yeah, so the mind body problem, right? That's difficult. Can we solve it? Like it was trying to convey the depth of the problem at times, but it's like that's what a million other philosophers through history have done. So if you're going to talk about neurophenomenology and challenges to neurophenomenology, you don't have to talk about how the mind body problem is a challenge to neurophenomenology.
Yeah. It feels it it feels like it's at a very particular level of engaging.
I did like that they emphasized that the skill of the participant matters. Like you can be better or worse at introspection or whatever first personal method you're talking about.
And I think it kind of goes back to the microphenomenology paper and like their attempt at making a really explicit, training manual, training process where here's how you do this, here's how you approach this, here's, like I respect that work a lot. And I feel like I don't know if I agree with it, but I respect they're trying to get at that, and I think it's one of those things where I kind of feel like, if we could have, half a decade of people who were half a decade of data or, whatever outcomes from people all trained in one thing and like uniformly trained and, graded out well, like here's the top 10% of our people and here's the data from them. And, that maybe could be something, but that feels a little, I don't know. We'll see. Boy, it's funny. I'm so glad to hear your critiques about the paper, Amanda, because it really, I see so many of the papers I've written over the years in this paper, and like the kind of the way, the difference between making a very specific point and making a general point, and how that affects like the quality of things overall, and like why it's hard work. It's really hard work to do. Like I know I kind of drag the cognitive science project, but like I don't think it's an easy thing to do. It's hard to get at the problems the right way. Yeah. Let's see. I think that's what I want to say. Background was nice. First person neuroscience is a field of neuroscience that focuses on mental states by themselves. I mean, that sounds a lot like microphenomenology in some sense. As opposed to the content of these mental states in the context of how they experience the first person. I don't really know what that means though. Oh, there's an interesting thing here. Let's see if this thing works.
I recognized the name George Northoff. He wrote a book called The Spontaneous Brain. I think Hussein mentioned his name in Slack, and then I downloaded this book.
Hmm. So first person neuroscience is an investigation of neuronal states under guidance and on orientation to mental states. fMRI study on emotions shows that third and first person analysis yield data different results. Ooh, yeah. Okay.
The first brain
Right.
perspective.
Interesting. First and second person neuroscience and phenomenology in person. So this whole section is like examples of research areas. Okay. Human consciousness, which we know, we talked about that a lot. Religion. This is a kind of a religion and culture magazine or journal, so this is why they have this here. Which does tie in well. Like it is the Buddhism stuff I think is actually pretty interesting. I'm not rushing to jump into it, but I think there's some legitimacy to all that stuff.
Well, that was something that was really important to Varela.
Yeah.
Like that was, I think, a real guiding factor in his work.
Yeah.
And Evan Thompson's as well. Like a lot of these authors really emphasize that like maybe a lot of this stuff has already been figured out, just not in the, Western philosophy context.
Well, just for my own sense, my pre-science, post-science split of philosophy and this here, I think, fits very well with that comment. Research on emotions, I think to get the education. This is kind of the interesting part for me here, because did we talk about Strollo before? It sounds familiar, but I don't know who Strollo is. Maria Strollo? Neurophenomenology of education. Action research. What? And action research carried out with teachers and educators at this university through research and results. It is possible to analyze the nexus and connection between phenomenology and cognitive science in the training of educators relating to reflection about category and intentionality in education are the key. The intentionality, otherwise the deepest motivation pushing the action, is in fact conceived as the motor of each educational process. For training. Okay. Okay. Interesting. Let's put this here just to talk about it. Oops. Okay. what is meant here? On the basis of intersubjectivity, coexistence, one can state that its possibilities no one experience in education. I kind of like there's sort of a, is it really getting in here? The assumption that intersubjectivity is necessary to overcome the strongest objections to the application of neurophenomenology. No, I was trying to find fine. I'm trying to find some quote. Maybe I'm missing it here. There's something about oh, yeah, this bit about, I don't know who this is being quoted here. Oh, I guess it's sure. So this bit about higher primates and essentially theory of mind, like being able to understand, model other people's stuff. Learning is imitation, okay.
I don't know what this has to do with neurophenomenology. Yeah, where's the neuro?
I think they're getting into
Even
the theory
broadly
of mind.
construed.
What's that, Bradley?
I think they're getting into the theory of mind, but they're not calling it that. So it's like if you can like think what other people are thinking, you can get in touch with your sort of your own sort of what you're thinking. I guess that's where they're going. It seems like that's where they're kind of going with this.
I think it's in this paragraph. They're saying education is related to intersubjectivity. By intersubjectivity, what are they saying? Like theory of like being able to understand what other people are experiencing, basically.
Yeah, basically.
And
yeah. But what's like the third person? I'm not sure.
There's assumption that intersubjectivity is necessary to overcome the strongest objections of the application of, okay. Indeed, this intersubjective approach makes it impossible to combine neurophenomenal and education. Primates can do this. Cool. Learning thus seems to be something like imitation. So I think, and I don't know what these say down here, I guess they're saying there's something between theory of mind, intersubjectivity, seeing someone's model of whatever develop, and then their own model developing, which like, okay, like I'm kind of like, on board with that, I guess. It just seems a new ability, the specularity one. One was thinking, modeling, reasoning in a given situation as others would think. So it's sort of theory of mind, but imitating how someone is developing their understanding. Okay. Right.
Yeah, it's like if they're talking about a kind of theory of mind capacity that's specific to the second person's learning experience, it seems.
First, the value of first-person data lies in a deeper understanding of the ways learning and thus improvement of pedagogical practices. Probably relates to another paper. There's a number of experiments and practices that use a phenomenological and neurological perspective. Many educators, okay, this paragraph is like, people do this, okay. McKierney, who I don't know anything about, the neurophenomenological praxis. I'm curious. We have to go soon. Okay. No, we can stop peeking at this paper. I'm sorry. Interesting. I want to read this. I don't know if it's any good.
Okay, yeah, that might answer some of my questions. I see the relevance of like phenomenology and psychology to education, but not specifically neurophenomenology here.
I'm guessing very broadly that it's kind of like when I say landmarks and like I guess it's I'm imagining it's a process of trying to if the process of like microphenomenology or training someone to be coordinated with, I don't know, understanding their subjective data, like that kind of training, I imagine it's going to do with like, okay, here's how you can like have an educational model, or not educate, but like a how do you learn kind of a thing. I don't know. I'm curious to see. I'm really curious to see if there's any like thing I think about is good in that sense. Is it any substance? This identity thing was interesting. This I don't know. The identity part was basically physically manifesting parts of the relationship, like moving closer to or further away from stuff. Like, okay, that's kind of interesting in a way of like embodying it. I guess it's okay. I don't really know. It's I get intuitively a little bit of it. I don't really know what to make of it. Like you're trying to make these implicit um or like not overt things slightly more explicit in a quote unquote embodied way. Learning in terms of embodiment. Volunteers identify with each other, their students respond to whether they believe the identification is relational, positional, or contextual, I guess. Rooted in structures of biology, but domain of consensual action, cultural history, embodied mind stuff. Yeah, okay. What is this? 64 here. Okay. The point here is to feel the enacting of interpersonal connectivity and community. Theoretically, there is an inseparability of intention and attention. Thus, to observe and interpret one's intentions is to interpret meaning and experience in relation to one's perceptual and aperceptual attention. Okay, well, maybe I'll look into that paper. We'll see. I don't know if it's something I want to say we should read next time or not. I know we're basically out of time here. I'll put this.
No, I'm glad we read this, even though didn't match my expectations.
Even though you picked some harsh words earlier.
Even though it read like an undergrad paper a little bit.
I didn't really get what I didn't know what to make, or maybe I missed this section or something, but yes, clearly the explanatory gap. First brain perspective is coming from that other guy's thing about the first person science. Okay. North off and high is still okay. Methodological issues, yes. It is a key issue, that's why we're here. I don't know. Anything we wanted to say about the methods part? That's pretty much it for the paper. We recovered the rest of it. Emerging methodological problems. Yeah. The Chickanowski. Churchland and Bennett. The timeline between the experience and the interview. Like this is not, okay. there must be a person to judge all of this. Yeah. Discipline training, moral solution is the training bit. Okay. Okay. I don't know. Any other thoughts about this? I think it was good to read. Curious what I want to do next.
There was one other that I sent in the Slack. It was like right after you shared this, I think. I'll have to look for it. But I can share it again, and then if we like it, we can do that. Or
was it this one? No, not the past one. Maybe.
Oh, or that though. That's what I was thinking of. Because those cognition pasts, there was one of the links I shared. Yeah, the one that I mentioned you in.
This is actually like a chapter or a book or something.
Oh, maybe it wasn't that one. Anyways, it seemed very relevant to your metaphors for the mind project. So I guess in general, you can find something that you think would be helpful for that. For the presentation, for the submission.
We gotta turn our eyes to that now. Jeez. Yes, sir. Okay.
Like 2 or 3 now that were really helpful for mine. And I mean, I could keep finding things.
No, you're right. Okay, I might think about that. We can read it for next time. Anything else on the docket? I mean, there's sort of like, I'm hesitant to say either this one or the this one. Maybe. I guess I'll just try to look at these and say in chat what the next one's going to be.
Sure.
Otherwise, next time maybe we can challenge ourselves to just like talk more about do a check-in on both the papers and maybe talk a bit more about them, even if it's just conceptually how we're going to do it.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
A challenge for next time. Okay, that looks good to me. Maybe also maybe some new stuff next time. Anything else before we go? We'll just get us out here at the top of the hour. Okay. No Norbert tomorrow, right?
Right.
Ooh, one thing I want to plug though. Yeah. I'm really gonna try to go to this. I'm gonna have to knock down some doors to get in there, but because they came when the registration was already closed, I would have totally signed up for that. But it's basically a 10-year symposium on CBMM and related to their AI quest and all that mumbo jumbo stuff. But it looks pretty good. Like I think I can do Friday, the welcoming, the quests, interacting with the physical world and embodiment. Like I really want to be there for that. I think that'd be a really cool discussion. Motor control, things like that. That's kind of what I really would like to be there for. Good to know that it's then neuroscience and AI back again. Kind of a great thing, but like I'd like to see King Washer, Coke, and these other folks here, Carlo. Language and thought, probably. Probably this, we'll see. But I'm looking forward to that. I'll let you know if I can go to it. I should be able to, but I have other stuff going on too, so we'll see. Anyway, we'll talk about that next time. And thanks for tonight and good stuff. I'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Be soon.
Bye.